Good afternoon, I am Stephanie Pitt with the Friday edition of the Our City COVID-19 News Show. We will be updating you on the latest information and resources around the COVID-19 pandemic while unpacking deeper issues as they emerge. We encourage you to get in touch with us as we welcome contributions from movements, healthcare workers and our audience. We would like this to be a two-way flow of information. And now for the news. On day 57 of the national lockdown, the current number of confirmed COVID-19 cases nationally stands at 19,137, with 8,950 recoveries and 365 deaths. 12,153 confirmed cases, 5,105 recoveries and 235 deaths.
Incidents of stoning.
A 66-year-old serial rapist who terrorized 6 towns in the province has been sentenced to 15 life terms in the Western Cape High Court on Thursday. Herman Harker received an additional 30 years of 4 counts of abduction and 2 counts of sexual assault. His victims ranged from 9 to 23 years old. The South African Police Services Divisional Commissioner of Detectives, Lieutenant General Tebelo Mosikili, said the concrete foundation laid by the investigating officers enabled its serial and electronic FCS investigation unit to take a watertight evidence-based case to court that ensured Harker received a hefty sentence. A truck was looted and cars stoned on Jakes Gevrel Drive near Samora Machel on Friday. It was another in a series of looting incidents that has taken place since the start of the national lockdown. The result has been road closures and traffic backed up in the area. The city's law enforcement spokesperson Wayne Dyson has more.
Incidents of stoning and looting of a truck has again occurred on Jakes Gevrel Drive in the area of Samora Machel. Officers are on scene and there is a huge backup of traffic. The road should be closed imminently.
A Khayelitsha grandmother spent 2 days sleeping outside the local SASSA office waiting for assistance. The 52-year-old woman, who asked to remain anonymous, was among hundreds of Khayelitsha residents who desperately queued for assistance on Thursday, with many having slept there for several nights to secure a SASSA spot. The SASSA East River office closed after a staff tested positive for COVID-19, so residents traveled to Khayelitsha to be helped. Khayelitsha Development Forum chairperson Ditini Kido said they were trying to intervene and stop people from sleeping outside. The city of Cape Town has put in place a fatalities management plan in preparation for increased demand for burial space as COVID-19 deaths rise. The city outlines stringent rules in terms of attendance. MACO member for Services and Health Zahid Badruddin said the city had prioritized engagements with funeral undertakers, mortuaries and religious fraternities to ensure they kept abreast of the latest legislative requirements. He encouraged the public to consider burials on weekdays at reduced tariffs to limit the safety risk and possible congestions at cemeteries.
We want to encourage people to consider cremation where possible, especially if cultural and religious beliefs allow for this to be done. We're also encouraging our residents to discuss preferences with family members, because what happens so often is that a person dies unexpectedly without having told anyone that they prefer to be cremated. When in doubt, the family normally chooses burial, and burials generally are more expensive, and they also often place a lot of pressure on the bereaved to provide expensive coffins and memorials afterwards. And the concept and the idea of cremation is one that is less expensive as an alternative to the normal burial options that are currently available in the city. We also understand that this will prove challenging for some of our residents and different burial cultures. However, in the interest of public safety, we appeal for the public's understanding and cooperation. The city has always and will continue to prioritize engagements with funeral undertakers, mortuaries, and religious fraternities to ensure that they are kept abreast of the latest legislative requirements, and that the stakeholders in the burial value chain are interdependent, and communication is a key which we are focusing on as a city to mitigate any challenges which may arise from an already pressured and very sensitive system. Cemeteries remain operational as an essential service, and while there have always been strict conditions, we have tightened safety measures even further during burials. We realize that this is a difficult time for everyone who is involved, but the national regulations have to be adhered to. These measures have been put in place based on what is currently known about COVID-19. And so this is obviously subject to change, and when national regulations are updated, and the city is committed to making sure that communication in this regard is prioritized to all stakeholders involved in the fatalities management process.
Swayzway residents in Khayelitsha have been living with overflow sewage for more than a month. Last Wednesday, it got worse. Raw sewage flooded their yards and flowed into their homes. Some angry residents said they wanted the city to comply with regulations of COVID-19 pandemic, but that it was tough under the certain conditions. City of Cape Town officials arrived just in time as residents found themselves stuck inside their houses. Ward 95 Councillor Xolisa Ngweze said since he reported the sewage spill, the problem had been resolved. He commended the city officials for responding on time. A group of 178 homeless people who was placed at the Strandfontein quarantine site had been moved to a new site within the city. With the site currently under construction, the homeless people do not have access to water, mobile toilets, and food. The South African Human Rights Commission with several community action networks have joined forces to aid the group.
These are the 178 homeless people who were quarantined at the Strandfontein quarantine site. The City of Cape Town have now moved them to the Old Marine Drive in the City of Cape Town. They are yet to receive any communication from the city.
Basically, we were in court yesterday during the day. Our attorneys were still trying to negotiate with the City of Cape Town attorneys. They'd spoken to us on Wednesday evening and told us what the city had proposed, and we had rejected that proposal, and we'd asked the lawyers to argue it in court the next day. The two issues at hand that we were unhappy about is that there on the table was the fact that the city, one of us, we had requested quarantine for the people that were in the tent, because one of the individuals that was a committee member and very much a social butterfly that had contact with everybody in the tent, on leaving the site on the 11th of May, 3 hours after leaving the site and having been screened as, you know, free to go, was tested at a Dis-Chem drive-through and was tested positive. We got that notification on Wednesday the 13th of May. On the 14th, we gave the city a list of people that had extreme contact with her, but we also said to them that everybody in the tent had had access to to discussions with her as the Vice Secretary of the committee. For a week, nothing happened. We weren't isolated, we weren't quarantined, we were continued doing business as usual at the tent. And then on the eve of the closure of the site, we were told that the 31 people on that list were to be quarantined. We then explained to our lawyers and to the city that this didn't make sense. Because of their delay in quarantining us, we'd had another week where we had, especially I, or the rest of the committee members, had extreme contact with everybody in the tent because we were negotiating what was going to happen after the Strandfontein closure. So our lawyers were then told there will be 96 spaces available. There's 178 individuals, so how are you going to house them all? That was our first problem. Secondly, the site will only be available on the 31st of May. Why only on the 31st of May when they could have started it on the 20th rather than on the 15th of May? Unfortunately, despite our having tried to urgently prevent the eviction of people from Strandfontein until the matter had been heard, we also got served a court order, which our attorneys had said to us had actually not gone through court. Because our asking the attorneys to withdraw was conditional to them not having had the draft order in front of a judge yet.
The South African Human Rights Commission monitors are on the ground to help the homeless people and to report back to their headquarters on any rights violated by the City of Cape Town.
Here, the situation is we also feel that the situation that we're seeing now, there's a bit of impediment to people's human rights, because if you put people, yes, they're homeless, but then if you put them in Dawenjena and they don't have access to toilets, they don't have access to water, then, there is a bit of impediment to human rights. And in my case as a gender activist, I'm looking out for issues that are going to be affecting women more, because already singabantu abangomama sicinezekile, so you don't want any further into eyenzekayo put pressure for women to feel even more burdened situation. So that's why I'm here to monitor that, and so that we can report back to the human rights, and the human rights can take that up to government.
As the homeless people wait for this new quarantine site to be completed, the Human Rights Commission and the Woodstock Community Action Network have come together to provide the homeless people with things like the mattresses, water, hand sanitizer, and food. I am Octavian Globu, reporting for Our City News, Cape Town.
It's time for an ad break. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back. You're still watching the Our City COVID-19 show on Cape Town TV. 19-year-old psychology student Jason Ehrlich and his World United colleagues have started a food parcel drive in which they distribute food to vulnerable communities around Cape Town. The group has handed out 630 parcels a week. To sustain the initiative, they have partnered with various NGOs and churches, as well as Spa Palm Grove. This is what he had to say.
So it started about the first week of lockdown. It started off with two churches, Al Shaddai and the Durbanville NGO Community. And then from there, we kind of started to reach out to surrounding churches, also other NGOs. And then, the team just grew from there, which is great, because I still remember when I first started helping out, I would go and we'd literally maybe buy food for about 40 families, but we'd take a back in, we'd go to Giant Hyper. That's how everything started. And then, it really just began to grow from there out of people's generosity, and everyone enjoyed alongside us. Now we have various churches involved with us, as well as various NGOs. So currently, we actually have a list. A lot of it is aimed at school children who we know no longer have access to food. So it's aimed at the children in Morningstar, who attend Alpha Primary. It's also aimed into Santa Cruz, Klippieville, a few of the farms on the way to Philadelphia for the kids who go to Atitbeg. And then we also do a few food hampers for people in Mitchell's Bay.
The World United group appeals to all people to contact them via their social media platforms, or call them or give their names to surrounding soup kitchens so they can bring relief to them.
So the number of parcels that we can distribute a week is obviously dependent on our funds. So the average that we do is about 500 a week. So sadly, we're not able to help everyone, but the more funds that come in, we're able to help more and more people. So for example, people can put their names on lists at soup kitchens. So they're more than welcome to contact us over social media. If they just go into Facebook or Instagram, it's just World United. You guys can find us there. It'll be a picture of a hand and then the world, and then a heart next to that. You guys can contact us then, and we can try and get you in touch with surrounding soup kitchens. And then they can just put their name down there, and then we also deliver to those soup kitchens as well. It's kind of
Jason also encourages people to get involved and volunteer to ensure that SA stands together during this time of crisis.
So we take volunteers. So our volunteer base is built of different high school students, young adults, from the various churches, and people that have just popped in and seen what we're doing, even just, while they're buying their groceries. So new volunteers and stuff are welcome. We just work on We have obviously quite a strict system though in terms of have to wear masks, sanitize your hands regularly, social distancing. So for the room that we pack in, we only have a small number of people who are allowed in just for safety. So when people do volunteer, it would only be, we have hours that we rotate people through because it is difficult work. So if people do want to volunteer, they're more than welcome to come and just contact us over social media. We'll try our best to get you involved. Yeah, honestly, anyone who's keen to help or give donations, it's accepted. I mean, when this first started, I definitely wouldn't have imagined that, you know, it would be such a big thing now. I mean, again, when I first joined, we were only doing 40 families a week, which I thought was a lot at the time, and now we're able to average between 500 and 600 a week. And again, that's not because we had a lot of money, a lot of people coming in. That's just because, honestly, we just asked for help. So I would say don't be afraid to ask people to join or ask for help. Like, again, we just sold the vision of, look, we want to help as many South Africans as possible. And then, I mean, Spark joined with us, and, you know, various churches and NGOs joined with us. So I just want to encourage anyone who has the idea of wanting to do this, like, it is possible. Make those calls, speak to people, you know, call in any connections you have, because I really believe this is what's going to help South Africa get through this time.
For Our City News, I'm Stephanie Pitt.
The Western Cape is currently the epicenter for the coronavirus, with 5 areas in the Cape Metro identified as the city's hotspots. They are Tygerberg, Khayelitsha, Klipfontein, Western Dunoon and Southern Hout Bay. Khayelitsha has 2 hotspots on the southern part of the N2 between Meway and Spine Road, and the other at the northern part of Baden-Powell Drive moving towards Mitchell's Plain. The Klipfontein region includes Gugulethu, Manenberg and Bridgetown. In the southern Hout Bay Heights and nearby Bel Ombre are focus areas. Clusters of outbreaks or hotspots are undergoing focus testing, screening, tracing, support, and officials are prioritizing treatment of the most vulnerable. Health Minister Zweli Mkhize has welcomed personal protective equipment donations from the United States, the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints, and the pharmaceutical giants AstraZeneca. The generous donations will help the fight against the novel coronavirus. This is what he had to say.
As announced by President Ramaphosa, the United States government has also generously made a donation of 1,000 ventilators. I am very pleased to announce that 50 of these have arrived in South Africa. They arrived last week and are awaiting installation at our public health facilities. I have to say that after sending a delegation of members of the Ministerial Advisory Committee to view the equipment, I started receiving calls from clinicians who are heads of our health facilities, scrambling their hands on the first of the 50 ventilators. In fact, I actually asked that they should be put in one hospital so that we can then install them and test them. And I suddenly found out that, in fact, there was a lot of disappointment because there were a lot of people who were already waiting on the queue to say, look, we want to be amongst the first to receive these. Word had quickly gotten around that this consignment was impressive, state of the quality equipment that was portable and user-friendly. And so everyone was trying to lay their hands on this particular equipment. I can only say that there was quite a lot of excitement even with myself as I got the call as we're discussing with Ambassador Lana Max on this matter. And so we are looking forward now to receiving the remainder, the 950 of this equipment, which will be distributed across the country. And of course, we have already said they must give us a list as to where we would like to send those. President Ramaphosa already expressed his gratitude, and as the Department of Health, we also can only attest to the public that indeed we have received them, and we are really excited, and President did express gratitude in the last public address that he had given. Secondly, I want to address myself to the church as I welcome and appreciate the Church of Jesus Christ of the Latter Saints. In our discussion with the elders of the church, it was very clear that they've taken our fight against COVID-19 as a fight that they really have to be part of and therefore that come on board to make a contribution, and have made a generous contribution which amounts to 70,000 KN95 masks, 30,000 surgical masks, 50,000 coveralls, and 3,420 packs of plastic aprons, and 50,000 face shields, 1.5 million gloves, and 250 infrared thermometers. All of these are valued at $1 million US, and we are very pleased again to receive this donation. And Elder Palmer, we want to really say thank you for the partnership, and we'll say we really feel honored as well to call ourselves your partners. In fact, we rapidly, as we rapidly release the lockdown, want to ensure that every facility has a number of thermometers to immediately check the patients. This donation also go a long way towards supporting our effort to protect health workers who are at the forefront of fighting the COVID-19 pandemic. It is true that the church certainly has a role to play in our society to provide both physical and spiritual support and counsel to its congregants and members of the community in general. This cannot be ignored, as government to acknowledge this role of religious leaders in this country. In particular, during a difficult time of uncertainty such as this one, where there's a lot of anxiety of people unsure of the impact of the infection, how this pandemic is going to deal with us as members of various communities, the anxiety that comes from those who have been in contact with the people who are infected, for those whose families are already affected because someone is already infected, or even those who have even lost their loved ones as a result, particularly amongst the health workers who also feel vulnerable because they are not only exposed in the front line, but their own issue of concern comes from their own families who wonder whether, as they are exposed at work, that might actually expose their own families. So the level of anxiety here is understandable, even more so that the normal communal gathering wherein spiritual ministering is possible in the regular church services has not been as easy because of the restrictions that have been put in during the lockdown. We do understand, however, the role that is important to be played by the church in counseling and therefore dealing with the issues of mental anguish, and also support communities as they go through the stresses of life, which result in some of them actually suffering serious challenges and going through problems such as not only just mental health strain, but also depression, depression and others attempted and even real suicide cases. So the role, therefore, of the church in supporting our mental health programs as part of community is really appreciated. In a number of instances, churches also play a role in the distribution of relief in terms of food and clothing and other kind of essentials that make our communities feel that they are being cared for. So this kind of gesture from the Church of Christ of the Latter Days, Latter Saints, illustrates that government can rely on its social partners to protect the lives of our people and fight this pandemic. So Elder Palmer, we want to really thank you for the gesture that demonstrates your compassion and your caring, as well as solidarity with all the people who are suffering, and really we appreciate that and we want to say thank you. Next, I want to deal with the very generous donation from AstraZeneca. AstraZeneca's pledge is by no means a fleeting grand gesture. They are donating 60,000 surgical masks, and this donation is handy for purposes of dealing with the COVID-19. And we really want to say thank you, because this one, we didn't ask for it, it came as all the other donations have come. But what is for us more interesting is the donation of 10,000 BP blood pressure monitors. These are electronic equipment to monitor blood pressures, which, as you have heard, that these will be used by community health workers.
13 community care centers in the Western Cape have closed due to staff contracting COVID-19, as more in Cape Town and surrounds. Health officials fear others could shut down sporadically in the coming months. MICO member for Community Services and Health, Sahid Badruddin, said the city's Occupational Health and Safety branch conducted a risk management to determine if limited services could continue or not after a healthcare worker tested positive for the virus. The city was issuing staff with PPE on an ongoing basis. Africa has reported a low number of confirmed COVID cases so far in relation to its population size. South Africa is leading the rest of the continent with almost 20,000 confirmed cases. But the question is how? How has the continent been able to register such low numbers? Health, social problems. In the following video, we learn why.
Dr. Ahmed Ogwell, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
There have been suggestions that Africa will be the next epicenter of the pandemic. So far, the numbers have been lower than other regions. What is being done?
We do not think that Africa is going to be an epicenter at the scale of what we've seen in Europe, in North America, and China. And the reason for that is because the lessons we learned from previous outbreaks have taught us that there are a few things that we need to do, including one, starting early. Africa started early. As soon as we saw the spread of COVID-19 to countries beyond China, we started preparing and building the capacity of our countries. Secondly is working in solidarity, neighbors supporting neighbors. In the beginning, we only had two countries that had the laboratory capacity to diagnose COVID-19. Today we have 52. It means that the resources, laboratory resources, the expertise on the continent has been shared and has built the capacity of other countries and other experts.
That's very encouraging. We know that testing is very much part of this strategy to prevent and also mitigate the pandemic. Can you talk to where Africa is in terms of testing capacities, whether it's rapid testing or just in general?
First is, as Africa CDC, we recommend PCR testing, not rapid testing. This is because we want to be sure that an individual actually does have the virus. That way, they are managed in an appropriate way. Secondly is the capacity for testing has been expanding. To date, we have distributed over 250,000 tests, and the testing is going on in a targeted way, where those who meet the certain criteria are the ones who are tested. And these numbers have been growing because more people are being exposed. And the numbers growth has not been exponential as has been seen elsewhere because of the measures that governments in Africa have taken. We are hopeful that the measures are going to result in the numbers not going too far up. And with the new partnership that we have started last month, it is called the Partnership to Accelerate COVID-19 Testing, PACT. This partnership is an initiative to increase the testing in Africa, where we intend to test 1 million Africans over the next 4 weeks and 10 million over the next 24 weeks. This is in an attempt to get a clearer picture of what burden of disease we have for COVID-19 in Africa, and therefore prepare for it appropriately.
Now, speaking of testing, I would like your reaction on what is happening in Tanzania. President John Magufuli said that the tests are flawed. That's one of the reasons why the cases are spike in his country, that they tested fruits and goods, for example, and the test came positive. What is your reaction to this?
The Africa CDC is procuring test kits from manufacturers that have been vetted. And we are very confident that the test kits that we are distributing to Africa are of good quality. They work. And we also follow up with the quality assurance. When tests are having problems, we know and we rectify. But in Africa today, all the tests that we have distributed to all the 55 member states are tests that are not fake. They are tests that are of good quality, and they are tests that are giving us results that are real. So long as a country has testing kits, so long as a country has the capacity to identify those who have been exposed, the tests that are being done are of good quality.
After the ad break, Octavia Ndlovu will be updating you on the latest social media. She will also be reading some of your comments on our Facebook page. Stay with us.
You are still watching Our City COVID-19 show. I am Octavia Ndlovu. We like to keep our viewers up to date about what's happening in the Cape Town and in the Western Cape on our Facebook page. Yesterday, we posted one of the top stories of a boy who got arrested for selling illegal cigarettes in Grassy Park. These are some of the comments you had to say. Aisha I.C. Solomons, they made us criminals by saying inkies illegally. Now they want to arrest people, Skas, Black, and Tronk. They're getting prisoners go free. She went on in saying that they should catch real criminals and keep those who are in jail and leave the kids alone. Charles Mereldoth said, worry about the drugs. Shaquille said, now people get criminal records, which they never had. Really sad. Maimuna Abrahams said, when he ran with a gun in his hand, he won't get arrested. And last but not least, Craig Jacobs said, the car guards are the ones selling the cigarettes. We'd like to know your views on burning issues during this pandemic, so we'll be posting burning questions daily on our Facebook page, which is Our City CT. You can also follow us on Twitter at Our City CT. Let's take a look at the popular hashtags on Twitter today. Hashtag SASA. Unemployed citizens are desperately waiting for their 350 special relief grant and calling on SASA to make it happen. Hashtag Zizile must fall. It's been a bad week for Miss South African hopefuls. First Bianca Skumbi, then Odi Cooper, now it's Zizile Mtombeni, an Eastern Cape Modeling Academy owner who is the Twitter target. She has been outed for cyberbullying and being rude to online users. After the ad break, we'll be crossing over to Stephanie Pete, who will give us information on resources and places of safety that you can use during this period. Stay with us.
Welcome back. You're still watching the Our City COVID show with me, Stephanie Pitt. For your latest news around the COVID-19 pandemic and to see what other Cape Townians are doing to keep safe, tune into Cape Town TV daily. These are some of the organizations helping communities stay safe during this period. That's all we have for you today, but if you have something to say, we want to hear from you. Send your comments, news, and questions to us via Facebook at Our City CT and on Twitter at Our City CT. Or you can get in touch with us via our email on ourcity@capetowntv.org. You can also call us on 028 4480 448. From me, Stephanie Pitt, and the Our City News crew, enjoy the weekend. Goodbye.